component of my article, 50 Spear Tips. Please see the written version at thetacticalfighter.blogspot.com. Part of your stance. You want to stand sideways to your opponent. That actually gives you the smallest profile. It allows the ability to dodge left to right. With this profile, you really can't dodge out of the way much. The biggest problem I see a lot of people when they're holding the spear is they tend to open up their chest, which leaves a very large kill pocket right here. I would say probably at least 50% of my kills against other spearmen are right to this spot right here. So you want to stand sideways, allows you the best maneuverability. You can use your spear to block, and you can sort of move in and out more so than you can this way, and you have it gets rid of the kill pocket. Knees. Okay, I see too many fighters that stand completely upright. Okay, you can't generate any power or any speed or any real mobility with your legs completely upright or without your knees bent. So you want to bend your knees. A lot of times the lower you go, the smaller target you are, but the biggest thing you really want is just a little bit of loose bend in your knees so you can be ready to move forward or back to fire your spear to defend yourself. Fire from the hip. What this means is that as you're firing your shot, you're actually going to rotate your hip into the shot. Okay, rotating the hip into the shot, and what this does is it's actually doubling the amount of speed. If you use just your arms, okay, you're only getting arm speed and arm power. If you drive your hip, you get twice as much speed, and it also throws your body into the shot. So make sure you're firing from the hip. Avoid, if you can, too much lunging. The more you lunge, okay, you're taking all of your weight, moving it forward. You're now stuck out in front of everybody, and it's going to take you a long time to transfer that energy backwards. Okay, so you really want to get right into the range, get in a little bit, and get right back out. Okay, use the full range of your weapon. Okay, what this means two things. Number one, I see a lot of people when they grab their spear, they hold it about here. I prefer holding it all the way at the very end. In fact, if you can hold it with 2.5 fingers plus the thumb is ideal. Some people will wrap their pinky behind the spear. I've actually created a little bit of a collar here so that my gauntlet actually slides right up against the end of this. But use the very back end of the spear to hold. And the other thing is, when you're fighting, you really want to be fighting at the full extent of your range. Okay, such that if I want to defend myself against another spearman, all I have to do is step back about this far and I'm out of range. So I'm attacking, I'm in, I'm stepping back out. Don't get caught getting inside and keep working yourself inside and trying to dance between 2 or 3 spears. You may be able to be somewhat effective with that in a spear duel, but once you get in a real melee situation, once you have other spears to contend with, it's only a matter of time before you get hit. I prefer using the full extent of the range. You want to actually move your arm and your hips and your shoulder all at the same time. The hip and the arm are moving forward all at once. A lot of people, what they do is they will actually step forward, fire with the hip first, then follow through with the arm. That takes twice as long to get the shot off. Learn to fire your spear with one hand. Okay, the advantage here is you're actually able to use your hips to rotate further through on the shot. You're going to be able to extend further, and you're going to get about 6 to 8 extra inches of range. Most spear people are taught to use the pull cue technique. Very rarely do I run into a spearman that uses the pull cue technique that is a threat to me. Okay, all the best spearmen I know fire their spear one-handed. I'll show you an example. Recoil into a defensive position as quickly as possible. So don't just think about getting out in front and hitting the target. Okay, you need to think at least 50% of what you're doing is getting back out of the range of the other spear. So you want to get your target, get in there, and then get right back out. And you need to practice this. Be there. Be in the front line. Be out with the other spears, okay? The people on the other side don't know if you're a threat or not, but the reality is if you're not in the line, you're definitely not a threat, okay? If you're new and you're afraid that you're not going to be that effective, you're going to get hit, you can stand right outside the range, but you just need to be there. Just having a spear up there makes a huge difference in the battle. And I'm a huge advocate of fighting out in front of your line. A lot of kingdoms and a lot of regions are teaching their fighters to form a shield wall and to put the spears behind them. Okay, that's fine when the shields are actively engaged. But when you're in a static fight, if you stand there and the other side brings their spears out in front, it's going to be their spears versus your shields. Okay, and it's just going to be a matter of time before they pick you apart. So you have to get out in front, fight with your spears out in front. And the other side charges, you just retreat back into your line. You've got a good 15-foot lead in order to be able to do that. Trade off shifts with other spears. This doesn't have to be anything that's organized. The commander doesn't have to call out any sort of organized, unit B come in and replace unit A or red team do this. If you have other spears behind you that are waiting to fight, don't hog the front line. Do your job, come on out, do it like hockey shifts. Give yourself a little bit of a breather, also give yourself a little bit of a mental breather, because if you're out there the entire time, it's just going to be a matter of time before you start to lose focus, and that's when somebody sticks you. Make sure you see the entire line. Use their peripheral vision and see not just the person in front of them, see the people to either side. I disagree with one piece of advice a lot of people give. They will say that you're not fighting the person in front of you, but you're fighting the person next to him. That's half true. You are fighting the person in front of you as well, and that's your biggest threat because he's the person closest to you that can kill you. So you need to worry about that guy, but you do need to worry about the people to either side. Take good spots in the line, okay? Not just available spots in the line. You need to start thinking about what's best for your side or what's best for your team. And it might be a side that doesn't have enough spear support. You need to get in there and ask a shieldman to please step out of the way so you can come up and do your job. And they generally will listen, okay? Or it might be to find some particular niche where you see an opportunity where there's lots of people to kill. And then go work for that spot. So don't just look for any holes in the line to fill with your spear. Find good spots in the line. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how we do 2-on-1 spear situation. If I have one spear, Bad Hands here has one spear against me, Colin's going to come in and fight. So what happens is that most people in this situation will come up right next to him to assist. They'll come up right next to him to assist. Have a 2-on-1 situation. What's actually better is that they can create a little bit of space and put a V on me. So now we have a situation over here. Even if he's back a little bit in the line, this is much harder to defend against both of these guys than if they're both up next to me. Do not crowd the line. You can cram maybe 5 or 6 spears into a spot, but you can't fight effectively. So it would actually be better to have only 4 spears in that spot. Spears need room to move around. So don't just crowd everybody up there thinking that you're going to get more points on the other side. Sometimes it's best to find a spot where there are no other spears facing you or archers, and you can go in there and get as many kills as possible. Sometimes the best spot for you to be in is a spot that fends off other spears. You've got a spear in front of you who is a spear god. If he's left alone, he's going to decimate your side. You may not be good enough to beat him, but if you're there and playing very defensively and fouling up his weapon, that could possibly do more good for your side than it is for you to leave that area and go fight somewhere else and let him kill all of your guys. And oftentimes, simply looking intimidating will have a huge positive effect in the battle. Okay, it can stop and advance. But it's a matter of standing there looking aggressive, like you're about ready to shoot at them. Use the minimal movement possible to deflect their spears out of the way. And a lot of new spearmen, when they deflect, they go like this, and they sweep back that way, and they sweep this way. All you need is just this. You can control the line of someone's spear by putting your spear on their shaft, and when they push at you, they can push your spear out of the way, so push mine out of the way like this. That's probably a little too excessive, but generally he wants to keep his line pointed right at me. So if he's from here, he can shoot at me, take a shot, okay? And I would prefer to be here, where I can now shoot at him. So in general, you want to keep a line on them and keep them out of your line. Okay, so now we've got a line on each other, and you can actually control the line. If he pushes me out of the way, so push me off to the side, I can disengage and come back to the middle. So if he pushes me back, disengage, and push me the other way, disengage, back in the line. So it's real quick, how to disengage. Always try to keep the line and keep them off the line. Okay, I call this one the draw and counter. So what's happening is, before I just said to keep the line off of you, you can also give them the lines. If I stand here, I'm actually giving him a straight line on me. Now the advantage of this is that I know that he's going to go for that shot. So when he goes for that shot, go for slowly, I can knock it out of the way and then counter. So take another shot on me, I give it to him, I knock it out of the way, and then I counter. Draw and counter. I call this disengage and fire. So it's the same thing we talked about before, where if he pushes over, I can disengage and fire. This is actually probably I call the spear trick number one. This is your first trick shot. So push it over, disengage and fire. Okay, this one is a little tricky. This is a double trickaroo. I call this disengage, disengage and fire. So he pushes over, I disengage, he comes back, I disengage and fire to this side. So it's real simple. It just pushes over, back to the other side. Okay, use your feints. So what this means is, as we're shooting each other, you constantly aim for different directions. And when you come in, you can come in. So you're just basically using feints and targeting different directions to try to get him to move his spear around before you shoot him. Think about shooting around the spear shaft. So a lot of shots, you're just going to go straight at him, but sometimes he's not going to give you that. So you have to think about, how do I get around the spear shaft, or around the spear shaft. I use basically two tricks on it. Two tricks on it. One is how to go around the spear shaft from the inside. So you go from the inside. I'm actually going to step out, and I'm actually going to turn my elbow completely upside down. The hand comes up, and so I'm going to the inside and shooting this way. You can also go around to the outside. This is a much more difficult shot. You got to be more careful with it. But it's basically, this time I'm coming around and shooting over the top like this. Sometimes for a face shot, around, over the top. The danger of this one is when I do that, show the danger here. He's got a straight shot right on me. It's a lot more difficult to pull off. Keep shooting against Colin, and he keeps deflecting out of the way. Notice when I shoot again, he deflects out of the way. As he's deflecting out of the way, I notice the spear is moving over about 8 inches. So what I can actually do is, instead of aiming at his shoulder, I'm actually going to aim for a spot right inside here. And as I do that, let's try and let me hit you. As I do that, he actually pushes it right into it. So I'm actually going to aim just to the outside of him, and when he deflects, he pushes right into it. Watch your opponent's eyes. As soon as you see an opponent's eye shift, that's the best time to hit him. Or pump and shoot. So what this is against another shieldman. And what you're going to do is you're going to fire, and a lot of times they're going to raise their shield up to block. You fire right at the face. You pull back part of the way, and then as soon as they drop it, you pop it right back in their face. If you can get away with this, try to sneak attack another good spearman from the side. While he's occupied over here, try to come in from the side somewhere if you can. You can find a spot that's over there, get real sneaky about it, and then hit him when he's not looking. Make sure you protect your friends. Okay, if I step in and step back to protect myself every time he comes up and gets aggressive, and then he takes a shot on one of my friends, I'm not doing my job. When you're fighting with a spear, you really need to think about how you're trying to out-trick the guy in front of you. Okay, you're trying to be real sneaky, and when you're doing the, you've got your niece going to give you 5, and you guys start playing this game, you start pulling it out and you stick it in there, that's the exact same mentality you need when you're fighting spear. And then this one is the sweeping defense, which is, I fire him, he knocks it out of the way, and he's going to come at me. I basically come backwards, and I sweep it up out of the way. So I'm going to go a little faster, play it safe. That's pretty much what that looks like. Okay, you want to target practice often. If you can find a target for you to use, here's an example of what I use. You can see I've got a pretty long room here. And I've got a couple targets here, but this one's got a couple of spots on it that I aim at. I'll aim at different spots and go for different combinations. I can even move over to this lower one over here. When you're practicing against a target, okay, pretend it's a real person. Pretend it's something you're actually fighting. I use this to try to practice quick targeting. Start off looking at an object somewhere else in the room. As you fire your spear, try to hone in on whatever target you're aiming for. Okay, what this does is it actually trains your brain to quickly identify the target and move the point into, into position. Sometimes when you practice, start off aiming for one target, but actually hit the other target. This is going to help with quickly finding a target and hitting it. Sometimes when you practice, you want to practice hitting multiple targets in rapid succession, again, to try to help train your brain to quickly identify targets. When you're practicing at your target, from time to time, practice sweeping the hand back for defensive purposes. I talked about this earlier, about doing it in the fight. You also need to do it in practice. Practice against other spearmen at practice. 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 2-on-1, 5-on-5, it doesn't matter. If there's at least one other person at practice with a spear, the two of you should be practicing. If you're ever in a situation where you have 6 spears at a practice, you could probably do this with 4 spears, but I'll show an example of 6 spears. This is sort of teaches people to look for the counterattack. So you have 3-on-3 across from each other in a bridge situation, because you're not running around all over the field, you're in a bridge situation. Okay, the spears on the ends can only attack each other. So the spear on your right can only attack the spear on their left. You know, the 2 spears on this side can only attack each other. And then the 2 spears in the middle cannot attack each other. They can only attack the people to either side of them. So it's really a practice for the people in the middle to learn to look for the people not directly across them and learn for counterattack opportunities. And it allows the people in the ends to get used to the fact that once they fire, there's someone else that more or less is eyeballing them and is going to counterattack them as soon as they shoot. So again, it teaches you how to get in and get out and how to defend people coming from other directions. It kind of forces people to start thinking about looking at directions other than the people directly in front of them. When you're in a spear dueling situation, I like to put a line in front of us. Maybe we'll lay a pole arm on the ground that can't be crossed, or sometimes there's a line in a gym if you're fighting inside. And what we use this for is so that spears get used to fighting in some sort of situation where you can't just chase a spear down or choke up on them and run into them. You know, that happens 1% of the time out there when you're fighting, but 99% of the time you really need to learn how to fight at range, and this line keeps people from starting to walk in on each other. I'm a big fan of being extremely aggressive, particularly if it's a short battle. If you've got an 1.5-hour resurrection battle, you're going to have to pace yourself. But if you got a very short battle or a 1-death battle, you know, you need to get out there and be very aggressive and get as many kills as you can, especially if you're in an opportunity where there's no other spears around, or you've got 4 spears against their 2 spears. Okay, those are the opportunities you need to take care of and kill those guys and kill them quickly, especially if there's archery involved. The reality is these days, if there's archery involved, as a spearman, you may not last very long anyway, so try to get your 2 to 3 kills before you get hit by an arrow. If you're in a resurrection battle, learn how to pace yourself. Okay, you know, if you have to be there for an 1.5 hours, particularly if it's a capture the flag kind of battle where whoever holds a banner at the end of the battle wins, you know, you need to be around for the last 5 to 10 minutes of the battle. You can't wear yourself out in the first hour of that battle. With rare exception, stay off of the flanks. Okay, spears should not be going out by themselves out on the flanks or trying to protect the flank. Or the spear is the worst person to protect the flank. You should always have a shield, if not on the outside of the flank, at least right behind you or ready to take your spot. Use your spear tip to control the contours of the lines of battle. In general, you always want their lines folding back in on themselves. You want the flanks to fold back in on themselves. And just being very aggressive, you know, putting your spear out in their faces, pointing it at them, you know, moving around, walk in the back. You can start to see, it's very much like a sheepdog herding sheep. You're going to get in there and you're basically walking them around and trying to force those lines to contour back on themselves. Follow your shields when they charge. If your shields charge in front of you, usually you want to be 2nd or 3rd rank back. Sometimes you can be in the front rank. It all depends on exactly what's happening. But once those shields charge, your job's not done. You need to follow up behind them and either try to fire shots over top, find gaps underneath, or literally just be up there looking for spears on the other side. They're trying to get your guys and just sort of keeping everybody honest. If you find yourself in a situation where somebody starts charging at you, you can actually use your spear shaft and press it up against their body or their shield or even their head. Let's not break any rules, but you can actually guide them. So here I have my spear shaft. They're charging at me, and I just take them and I push their heads this way as they charge in, and it moves them in another direction that's away from me. And a lot of times you can push them into each other. Even if you're pushing them into other people that are on your line, it's still throwing them off, so they don't really know what they're going at and what they're going to be able to hit, and it makes openings happen. Anyway, that was 50 spear tips. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try to get back to them.